Hey everybody, welcome to What the Flick. I'm Matt, this is Cenk, that's Brett. We are here to talk about the 7th episode of Season 6 of Game of Thrones called The Broken Man. And this one noticeably starts out without a credit roll, right? With this one, every other show, did you guys catch that?
I did
starts
not catch,
off
I
with
knew there
the
was something
credits.
off.
And this one starts off with, we see a group building a sept. That's what they're working on, this religious group. Headed by Ian McShane, the great actor from Deadwood and some other great shows. And we don't get the credit roll because it would have tipped their hand about a particular actor who was back.
That's why.
That's why.
So there's a lot of things off. At first, I thought it was just substantive. Because I'm like, wait a minute. Why are we all of a sudden in the Shire and Swearingen is building the ark for the hobbits?
Right.
Yeah, it was
Like,
really weird.
Yeah, and on the island of Lost.
Yeah, that perfect hillside.
Exactly. And then
I wonder if that hillside is in like multiple scenes because they always have like that green tor and it kind of filters into a valley, and that's where like episode 1, someone's getting beheaded. Like, I wonder if that's just like the place where they set up.
Well, actually, I've been on a tour of Game of Thrones sets in Northern Ireland.
Oh, wow.
And yes, there are some places that they reuse. They're like, okay, this is where this decapitation happened, but also, right, the snowfall of this and that, and he was the king of the north, and this is where it happened. By the way, the amount of CGI they use is amazing. Because that scene where Robb becomes king of the north is in this giant castle, etc. It's a ruin, but like 80% of it doesn't exist. They CGI'd it. It's outdoors.
Because Robb got killed.
Yeah, they put it indoors.
Yeah.
They made it look like it was indoors. Yeah, that was amazing. Right. So yes, it probably has been in several scenes.
Yeah, that's awesome. I loved it. And just like, I watched it on HBO Go, and before you start watching it, they give you the promo of like what else you should watch, and it was Deadwood. And I was like, why is he here? Why Deadwood? You know, I know they've been doing a lot of 6 Feet Under promotion because it's the 15th anniversary, but like then within 5 minutes, I'm like watching Ian McShane, and I'm like, oh, that's great. It's total. They did kind of give you that like tip.
Right.
Yeah, and so
then we see somebody come back.
That's right. So I went up and down on that. I was like, this seems out of place, and I didn't realize visceral that it was partly because we haven't gotten the opening credits yet, yada, yada. But also because it looked like they were having too good a time and they were like the hippies of Westeros. I'm like, why haven't these people been murdered yet?
Yes,
right?
100%.
Yeah.
And you got what you...
Right.
Keyword is yet.
Exactly.
Yeah, because it's... Yeah.
Sorry, and then I'm like, oh, Ian McShane. I'm like, okay, great. I'm like, why did it take till season 6 to bring in Ian McShane, who clearly should have been a giant character in Game of Thrones all along, right? But I'm like, okay, still, this is a little schwang, wang, wang. And I see the burn marks, and I'm like, oh, no, it's the Hound. And I immediately went from like, to like, fuck yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the Hound is back.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you haven't watched that episode, we tell you every time, like, obviously we have spoilers of the episode, not anything past it, not anything in the books, okay? But so if you haven't seen the episode, here comes a spoiler, right? So at the end, it was disappointing again because Swearingen should have been a giant character, right?
It's at that point where I'm like, why wasn't Swearingen, Ian McShane, why wasn't switching, cocksucker, go watch Deadwood right now. Why wasn't Swearingen Mance Rayder?
That's what I was going to say.
Oh, God, it would have been... And no offense against Caesar from Rome. Go watch Rome.
Who was also great.
Really great.
But I literally, we might have discussed that in one of the episodes because I didn't know who Mance Rayder was going to be. And I was like, it should be Ian McShane. And when I saw him this time, I was like, oh, you should have been Mance Rayder. And then they killed him by the end. I was like, no, just one episode.
That was shocking. I have to say, that was shocking that you cast Ian McShane in a role like this. And look, like I know people called me out for mentioning Richard E. Grant in the last episode and saying that I thought we would see more of him. Clearly, the producers are willing to bring somebody in who, you know, you got to guess Ian McShane likes the show, right? Because there's now opportunities for big actors, well-known actors to do these small parts. But he's in for one episode, and that's it, right?
Yeah,
that was shocking.
Crazy.
I thought, oh, okay, this can be a new power player in Westeros. We're going to see a lot of him. That's going to be awesome. Nope.
Right.
Nope, not at all.
I liked, and it's so sad and tragic that you see like religious figure who's like, listen, I'm not going to use this to control you in any way. I'm going to use this as an in to talk about life and personal
Right,
redemption. He says it's not about the gods.
Right.
It's about you.
I don't know the name of the seven. Maybe it's the many-faced God. Maybe it's the Lord of Light. I don't know. I don't care. It's just there's something greater than ourselves.
Yeah.
And you got to live a good life. And then he gets killed for it.
And then he gets total, and it's like, oh, this isn't going to end well.
Yeah.
Whenever you see someone who's like kind of at peace and happy and just kind of letting, not using something that could be used for power, then someone who comes in and uses it for power completely usurps him and kills him. And it was so sad.
And so those guys come in from the Brotherhood, right?
Yeah.
That's the Brotherhood without banners who follow the Lord of Light, and they've been wreaking havoc around Westeros. And you see them come in and, clearly Swearingen knows what's going to happen. Like he knows, and he's not going to do anything about it. There's that great conversation between him and the Hound where he says violence is a disease and you don't cure it by committing more violence, right? And the Hound says, well, you don't cure it by getting killed either.
Yeah, that was a great line.
Right.
And the only disease that you cure by giving to other people is the Ring video. I don't know if that's just the one hole in his logic there.
Yeah.
When the Brotherhood without banners showed up and was like, do you have any food? Do you have any horses? I was expecting them to go, do you have any banners?
We are totally out of banners.
We've been without banners for quite some time.
And for that matter, we're out of brothers.
So I'm confused by why about Lord of Light. I have been forever, right? So, and you're supposed to be confused, as far as I understand. Like, Matt, tell me if I'm wrong about this. Like, and it's really part of the ethos of the whole show, which is, God damn it, are they good guys or are they bad guys, right? And it seems like sometimes they're good guys, and certainly it's the most powerful, God we've seen. Then the old gods or whatever with the children of the corn, that's pretty powerful too. But then they're oftentimes hideous.
They seem like the most among, aside from the faith militant, which are different from like the other septons we've seen who seem to use like religion to get laid or whatever,
Bless their hearts.
They seem the most like outwardly militantly evangelical in terms of like converting folks. And if you're not with us, we're going to kill you.
Yeah, I think you have to look at like amongst the things that George R.R. Martin as an author is touching on is that it's really all about intention, right? Like the Brotherhood without banners starts out as this group that is sick of the various lords and the various houses like committing atrocities, and so they kind of band together. It's basically people that band together to protect themselves, and then it tilts into this abusive, powerful group that they're on their own, right? So you see, like they basically turn into highwaymen, right? Like early on, you kind of get that it's like, okay, with Beric Dondarrion, the guy, he's like, look, like we're trying to protect everybody, right? We're kind of a militia. We're protecting the little folks. And then they get a taste of power. It's like, oh, fuck the little folks, right? The little folks are out for us. And they're just as bad as everybody else, right? You see that in the faith with the seven, right? Early on in King's Landing, you see these abuses. It's almost like the pre-Reformation Catholic Church where these guys are drunk on their own power. And then this reformer comes in and, played with the High Sparrow, right? Jonathan Pryce comes in as this reformer. He's like, look, we're going to get back to basics. Oh, but he's just as bad as everybody else.
Right.
So the point is, like, religion's rough, y'all.
Right. He's using, and maybe Jonathan Pryce is using religion, for what his higher definition of an end is, which is, abolishing the idea of an oppressive landed gentry. Right. And he's kind of willing to tap in, and maybe it's pure for him, willing to tap into like the roots of the religious meaning and kind of playing this game in the middle to take over the monarchy. So he's really accomplishing his goals just as ruthlessly as Margaery has, as the Boltons have.
Right.
And of course, it's not surprising that religion is another tool for power because the whole show's about power. Right. Mm-hmm. And some use it brazenly to get laid, like, religion, and others use it just for power's sake. Sometimes power is power, right? Yeah. And Jonathan Pryce is into getting laid by power.
Yeah. Right. And as we're talking about the High Sparrow and what's happening and with Margaery, like we finally see evidence that Margaery is playing him. Right?
Thank God.
Right? Thank God. Like, we weren't sure. She's a good actress. She slips the note to Olenna, the Queen of Thorns.
Which is like, Westerosi for like a winky emoji.
Yeah,
Like if that was like a very, but like if you look at that on face value, it's like maybe Margaery is crazy and just like has strangely doodled a rose. But no, it was great to see that tip of the hat. Like, listen, I have to play the long game here. Something we saw a little bit of when Margaery was talking to Loras, which is just like, we are close to getting what we want.
Right.
The kind of thing that Cersei failed to recognize and could have done.
I love that we finally get Olenna telling Cersei how stupid she is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the thing that I've been saying for months, for years.
So
Cersei is not nearly as clever as she thinks she is. And I wrote some of this stuff down because it was so awesome. Where is it? She just was talking
I
so
wonder
much
if-
smack.
I wrote one of it down too, Matt. My favorite line of the whole episode was,
Oh yeah, if you're half as bright as you think you are, you'll leave too.
Yeah, I knew that would be
loved
your
that
favorite line.
Loved it.
My favorite line was, I wonder if you're the worst person I've ever met.
That was awesome.
It was so good.
Right, and then she says, "You've lost. That's the only joy I could find in all this misery."
That's
right.
right.
Like Olenna's got at least enough self-awareness to know that things are going south, and she's lost too. But she's capable of admitting to Cersei, like, yeah, I wanted to see you lose, and I'll go down in flames if it brings you down too.
Olenna has enough confidence in Margaery's talents because she fooled Olenna.
Right.
Olenna is like, oh, thank God there's someone smart around here. And she's not out of the woods yet, but having seen the underbelly of the Septon, or the High Sparrow, is wise enough to have beaten me in the game of perception and then been like, get the fuck out of here.
Listen, and here's the game that Margaery's playing now, right? When the Septon goes to her, when the High Septon says, here, there's problems in the marriage bed. Right? Margaery, who's been hot to trot all along, like, oh, I hear there's problems. Well, I don't know. And he's like, no, you need to get knocked up. You need an heir.
No, see, she's super sprite. And we knew last week when we were reviewing this, we thought it was a 90% chance that she was playing the Sparrow, et cetera. And so now it's just confirmed. And part of the game is, and that is so smart, and it's so smart of the writers to put it in, that she's not having sex with a king just so that she can seem more holy. Like,
well, but it's not just that. It's not just to seem more holy. That's part of it. But then for the High Sparrow to tell her specifically that she needs to get pregnant, right? Then that means that the Sparrow can't, or anyone else in this religious kind of power structure, can't say to her, oh, she got herself knocked up so that she can keep the reins on power. She's playing the long game, right? She will give birth to an heir to the throne, the prince that's going to be king after Tommen, and then conveniently you don't need Tommen anymore, right? And Tommen's the last of that line, right? So if Margaery has an heir and Tommen disappears or something happens to him, then Margaery is the queen mother, the queen regent, and that puts the Tyrells in power. That's the game she's playing.
So yeah, I got more of a sense of like, it's such a great thing for the High Sparrow to come to her and be like, oh, you have become too holy. Like, it's okay,
Right.
you need to have sex. And, like, that's such a great way of convincing him. But the one thing that I love the machinations. I love the intrigue. I feel it in some ways at home in that world, and which is a kind of a twisted thing to say. But sometimes I get confused. Like when she passed me the emoji of the flower, I'd be like, okay, I get it. You're playing him. But now, do you want me to leave or do you not want me to leave? Because, like, you told me to leave, but you're playing him.
Right.
Do you see what I'm saying? Like, so should I stay? I'm like, and if you were going to draw me a flower, why didn't you just write me a note?
Dude, my girlfriend said the same thing. Just write the note.
You can't write the note.
Because then it could be
if she
intercepted.
gets caught, if the Septa, your favorite, if Septa Olenna sees that, Unella, sorry, if Unella sees that, then she's like, it's just a rose. It's just a rose.
So here's the thing.
Right?
Yeah.
The most loaded line in this part of the episode was when Margaery is she holds her hands like this. What a great actress. She holds her hands like a model, like a doll. And acts so queenly and penitently at the same time. But she has memorized the passage from the book of the mother. But when it comes down to it, the Sparrow says to her, "You learn quickly." That's what he says to her. And that is absolutely Margaery in a nutshell.
Right, and he has no idea how right he is, like the implications of that.
Well, maybe he does. Poker face. Like the nun, the evil nun, is like, how perceptive is the evil nun? Because she seems to be like she gets a little mean sometimes. And that's why the Sparrow has her, is because she's probably the more paranoid one. I mean, how well did Lady Olenna play that moment when she changes her mind suddenly after having physical contact with Margaery? Was that picked up on? That's the thing.
I think it was. That's a great point, Brett. I want to bring that up too. Because I was actually a little disappointed, which is a theme that we're going to get to in this episode, in Lady Olenna's reaction. Because I wanted her to be like, this is stupid, I'm not leaving, to continue the farce. Because it seemed like the nun was like there was definitely a scene where she went like, like what happened?
Did she hear the crinkle paper?
Yeah, I think she did hear the crinkle paper.
They did make that loud.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yes, that there's definitely, they wouldn't have had the nun go,
Right.
And they wouldn't have had it be so loud if it wasn't a plot line.
It is
right?
absolute. The question is it an intentional or an unintentional ambiguity by the people making the show? Because there's one way to read it where it's like, they put the sound effect in so we, the audience, can hear that there was paper passed, and they, kept the nun stoic so that it was clear that she didn't see it. Or are we thinking that they put the paper in because, on purpose?
No, it was intentional.
I hope it was intentional.
I'm sure that in the edit bay, the sound guy's like, yeah, watch this. We're going to fuck up.
No, because it's not just the paper.
I think it could also just be a note where they're like, I don't know that she's passed. Like, if she opens up, if we don't hear that a note has been passed and she opens up a piece of paper, I could possibly read that as Lady Olenna has gone crazy and started drawing pictures and put them in her hand. Oh, this is what the rose used to mean. We need to know that it's been passed.
Right. No, I understand, but there was, on that alone, it might be more ambiguous, but there was a half a second of a raised eyebrow from the nun. So
I think so too.
They wouldn't have put that in.
But was that about Margaery's reaction, like grabbing her grandmother's hand?
Yeah.
Right? Was it like,
we don't know. But these are like those moments that we'll see play out later.
Right. I mean, it could be. There's another way to spin that Margaery is playing her role so well that even Unella's like, oh, she's really, really passionate here.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. I just wish the Queen of Thorns on her way out had insulted the nun once or twice more.
Yes.
To keep our pretenses better, instead of like, okay, I got a note, let's wrap this thing up.
Similarly, in the scene with Cersei, watching Lady Olenna just lay into her is super enjoyable for me.
Right.
Yes.
But in one way, because yes, of course, the catharsis of just like, you screwed up, bitch, and I'm saying that to your face on my way out the door. But on the other hand, like, this is smart, wily Queen of Thorns, who probably should just be kind of saying nothing and leaving. Because that's smarter.
Yeah, so I hear you on that. So I thought, is this also, on top of being cathartic, a part of the game she's playing, like to agitate her? But then I thought, no, she's just rubbing it in on her way out.
Well, here we go.
But it could be both, right?
The generational thing, where it's like, in Lady Olenna's time, and in Father Lannister, Tywin, in his time, that's just how you parented. Is you just say, listen, here's what's wrong with you, and I'm smarter and older, so you won't kill me. But those rules have changed. Like, it used to be, because I'm smart, and everyone, like, when you saw Tywin and Olenna talk to each other, they would, exchange daggers verbally, but then look at each other and go like, nah, this is a smart thing to do, let's go along with it. But Cersei is that spiteful idiot who reacts and unleashes the Faith Militant on Westeros. So that's one of those things where like, Olenna, yeah, that was a great moment for me to watch, but like, let's be a little smarter here for me.
Yeah, I've always viewed Cersei as somewhere between Tywin and Joffrey.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
like
exactly.
Joffrey's full.
I think she's much closer to Joffrey.
I know.
she's
You and I have always look, and I think
Cersei's
most
an
people are
idiot.
on your side, right? I think that the conventional wisdom analysis is, and I don't mean that in a pejorative way.
Right,
I mean,
I'm on Team Olenna.
Yeah. No, I love Olenna. She's one of the few smart, she's one of the few real players in the game, right? But Cersei is constantly a real player. She's constantly, causing changes in the game. Right. Yes. Sometimes she's a blunderer. Yes. She's a bull in a china shop. But she's not Joffrey. Like, I don't know, chop his head off. Ah, what difference does it make, right?
And even, like, Joffrey is such a destructive entity that even a drop of that in a Tywin will ruin, like, very key moments. The whole point of Tywin was his discipline. And Cersei can, like, say outside of it, listen, here's all the things going on, but just as Tywin called out to Cersei, like, you, or whoever it was, said, you love your kids. And, like, that's it. That's your vulnerability. And that's a thing that will blind her in a way that it never blinded Tywin.
And on that note, like,
Seldom.
I think Cersei is going to make another blunder that's going to result in Tommen's death before the end of the season.
So that's entirely possible. And so, to me, this all ties into the, the Lannisters' lowered status in the whole, in Westeros and how Game of Thrones is being played out, etc. Because then Jaime goes to Blackfish, and there was a great showdown where he's like, Blackfish, Kingslayer.
Oh,
right?
so good.
So that was great. But I was disappointed that Blackfish was disappointed in Kingslayer. Right? And I was like, you wish that he was like that a Kingslayer was Kingslayer, right? And that Blackfish would go, I see, okay, we're having a real match here. But even Blackfish, who's just a fish, is like, I'm a little disappointed in Jaime Lannister. Then you realize Tywin was what held everything together. Not you realize, we knew that, but still, now this is the ramification of him dying. Is that Cersei is at best middling, that's my opinion, and in your opinion, stupid. And Jaime is certainly much leagues above the Fry brothers, right?
The Frey brothers.
The Frey brothers, right?
The Fry guys.
The Fry guys.
The Fry
Which
guys.
we should call them because that's exactly.
That's about how effective they are.
Yeah.
He's leagues above them. He's a
Hamburglar
relatively
shows
smart
up.
guy, but he is nowhere near Tywin. He's not a strategist. He's just a somewhat
He's a
honorable
soldier.
guy.
He's a solid fighter.
Yeah.
That's
He's a
right.
solid fighter.
So then once you've taken out Tywin and Tyrion isn't there to hold things together, then you've got Cersei who's at best middling and Jaime who's a relatively good soldier, and that ain't much of a force.
Right.
Right? That is not the force that it used to be. So it is entirely possible that Blackfish takes out Kingslayer, Faith Militant take out Cersei and Tommen, and all of a sudden the Lannisters are done. They're the new Starks wiped off the map.
Yeah, that is all set up to potentially happen, which is terrifying, but like there's some of these moments in the show are like Martin has set up a bunch of stuff, but he's also set up this one big thing that we've come to care over a certain amount of time about this little stuff, but as the big thing, i.e. the wars to come, mount, it's possible he's like, oh, I've done all I can with them, let's kill them and move on. Like, that's in the back of my mind now especially that you pointed out, like, what might happen to the Lannisters.
And the next, by the way, just somebody online told me this, and I don't think it's a big giveaway, sometimes it is, but the title of the next episode is The Battle at Riverrun, right? So, and that's not a giveaway of what's going to happen there. We have no idea what's going to happen there. But that's coming to a climax between Blackfish and Kingslayer.
Well, it's Chekhov's gun, right? Like, you don't bring an army to a siege and then like, oh, see you guys, bye, we're out. Like,
they're not going to sit there for 2 years. To try to starve them out.
Exactly. So as you're talking about the big events, right? I think on a certain level, like it's almost an immersive experience, right? Like, we're getting distracted by all these petty politics. And then we get this speech from Sir Davos, who reminds us all, like, look, the real thing is up north, right? You all can fight about all you want. Everybody can kind of like nickel and dime each other, and everybody has their, everything south of the wall, as far as Davos is concerned, is petty politics. And he's right? There's that great speech, like, as Jon and Sansa are going around to the north trying to ask for people, and we meet this great new character, Lady Lyanna Mormont, who is awesome, right? This 12-year-old girl that is as badass as anyone we've seen. Right? And she's pretty much ready to turn them all down and be like, all right, all y'all fuck off, right? And then Davos is like, no, look, we need this. And even then, she only can pony up like 62 fighters.
But apparently inclling herself.
Yeah, so that's, which is 620.
Right, which is 620, right?
The value of
like
620.
Spartans.
Yeah, exactly. So the Mormont is... the uncle, what is it? The great uncle was the first like commander of the Night's Watch. You pass it off to Jon, whose cousin is Jorah Mormont.
Yes.
who was the guy with the grayscale.
Right.
Just to put that all in perspective, they're all one family.
Right.
So it's like going off to find a cure to grayscale.
So part of what I like about this season is we're getting to see a whole bunch of new castles.
Yeah.
Like you see Bear Island, and you're like, wait,
Oh, that's a new castle.
I'm like, where is that? I don't remember that castle. That castle looks awesome, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you get there, and then she makes the argument about how 62 men are, they're worth 10 of anyone else. And then you think of Jorah Mormont and the commander of the Night's Watch, and you think that might be true.
Yeah.
They might be raising some real serious bears on Bear Island.
Bear Island.
Yeah. There's 3 Mormonts that we know of, and every one of them is super badass.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, including a 7-year-old girl.
Right.
Or whatever.
She was awesome. She was so awesome. Like, she brooks no bullshit. She calls everyone out. That was rad.
She was, I loved that scene, especially the reveal. Like, we have a lot. You have access to 70 people, like
exactly.
50 soldiers. But like, what's happening at Riverrun? What's gonna happen next at Riverrun? Because we have not only the Lannister Baratheon army set up outside, and the Fry guys against the Blackfish, but we also have Lady Brienne coming down to ask this besieged castle for help in the north.
Right.
What happens? Because I'm pretty sure that you gotta ride through to get into Riverrun, unless I guess you take like the river entrance. But if you just come in yelling parlay, parlay, and they see Lady Brienne,
it's gonna be a mess.
Because Jaime and Brienne are buds, so they are.
Well, they are.
She has his sword, right? Isn't that what happened? And at least, hopefully, she gets to the front of the line before her bouncer, Sir Jaime, is like, no, don't kill her. She's cool. We'll talk at least for a minute in the thing.
Oh my God.
But like, what's the smart play? Because you just have, if you're the Lannisters, you've made deals with the Boltons in the north to run the north, but it's the north. Who cares who's in charge? I mean, is that the thing? Is Jaime going to be like, all right, actually, we should all be on the same page and kill all these Fry guys?
That's the other thing, is it's entirely likely that this is the first that Jaime's going to hear about what's happening in the north, that Jon Snow and that Sansa Stark have linked in together, and they're angling to take back Winterfell. The Lannisters basically gave Winterfell to the Boltons, right?
Yeah.
To secure the north.
They would be definitely opposed to that.
So they're going to be opposed to that, and if that army turns around and goes north, then it's entirely likely the Blackfish attacks them from behind. Like, suddenly Jaime is potentially in a rock, between a rock and a hard place, right?
Okay, so it's okay.
No,
I solved it, guys.
Okay,
so that's why I love these reviews and these conversations. So as Brett was talking and making his points, something you said lit a light bulb over my head. Brienne's going to kill Jaime Lannister with his own sword.
Oh, Christ.
Okay, the Lannisters are done. I've convinced myself in this review. Okay.
Okay.
Their time has come, and Brett, you're right too. Like, that's how George R.R. Martin thinks. Like, hey, I've got the big wars coming. You guys got all attached originally to the Starks, then you all got attached to the Lannisters, but you don't get it. This isn't about the Starks and the Lannisters. And the Lannisters are, and the Lannisters don't have Bran Stark, who's a world changer or anything like that. They ain't got nobody but a bunch of smart / some powerful people who are not so smart, right? And then I'm done with them, right? And I think that that's what's going to happen in this season, because there is no storyline that plays out there where the Lannisters win. But that's not, to me, that's not as interesting as what in the world is Littlefinger planning. Because you see, that's the real game, right?
Because
Sansa
writes a note to somebody.
Yeah, Tywin's gone. There is no great strategist left for the Lannisters. The only strategist left in the North, Jon Snow's not a strategist. He's like, he walks in there with the worst pitch deck ever, right? Like, no VC would ever give him any money, right? He's like, I don't know, you guys who used to be with the Starks, come on, join me. Who's your army? Oh, Jesus, I didn't think they would ask this. The Wildlings.
Like when you're asking for seed money, and they're like, well, we've got $50 from my Aunt Ethel.
Right.
I know, right?
So
the only strategist up for miles and miles is Littlefinger. And Littlefinger, we know, is already trying to make sure that Sansa gets the Knights of the Vale involved, etc. And then you see her writing that note to him at the end, which I'd like to point. See, we should do a poll on our app. Who's dumber, Cersei Lannister or Sansa Stark?
Oh God!
Because I will go to my grave saying it is Sansa Stark by a mile. By a mile. She is so stupid.
I disagree.
And there she goes again. You guys all try to redeem her. No, she's growing up and she's maturing and she's taking charge. Knucklehead, talk to your brother. Talk to Davos, who seems like a bright guy. Go, hey, this incredibly scheming guy came up and told me I should use the Knights of the Vale. What do you guys think? Should we use the Knights of the Vale? No, I'll send a secret note to the most scheming guy in the Seven Kingdoms and not let anybody know.
Who married me away to like a sick bastard, literally.
That's right. So she is so profoundly stupid.
Yeah, so what's the argument
she's going to ruin everything as always?
Stupid?
She doesn't know what we know is part of it. She doesn't know the things that we know. I think she hasn't fully seen completely. Littlefinger plays her, and she's young.
Once
I get it, and Littlefinger is the smartest guy on the whole planet. Okay,
right.
But an argument could be made, and you're absolutely right. She hasn't watched all 6 seasons.
Right,
and she only has her own perspective. Nonetheless, same is true of Cersei, right? And so, based on what Sansa has seen, she should know a hell of a lot better than to go confide in Littlefinger again after he gave her to Ramsay Bolton,
right,
and not talk to anyone else about it,
right? Because the argument is, if it's a pattern where he saved her, got her out of Joffrey's clutches, but then instantly betrayed her, and sold her off, and then he saves her by telling her that the dudes in Riverrun, the Blackfish is now in charge. If what's past, if history repeats itself, the next step is for him to totally betray her. He says that he doesn't love Sansa. He loves Sansa's dead mom, allegedly. So it doesn't follow through. He wants to be the king is the only thing that I can think of.
I don't think he wants to be the king.
He wants to be the most powerful person in Westeros. I think he does want to be the king.
No, I think he wants to be the power behind the throne. That's safer. I think he wants to be the power behind. I think that he's acting like an advisor to Sansa, and he's been manipulating her. And I think I wouldn't say that she's smart, but I don't think part of what changes things for me between Sansa and Cersei is that I think Sansa doesn't assume she's as sharp as Cersei assumes that she is.
Right.
Yeah, if you want to talk about arrogance, that's not a question.
And I think that's
Cersei's way more arrogant. Yes. Which is more grating. Like it's an unearned confidence.
Right.
Which is how Will Ferrell described George Bush. And,
Right.
and that's true. Cersei has that. Whereas Sansa's beginning to have some confidence, and boy, is that unearned. But look, let's do it. Not on the app, but on Facebook.com/WhatTheFlick. Let's do a poll. Who's dumber, Sansa Stark or Cersei Lannister?
Cersei.
So go to
Facebook.com
Facebook.com/WhatTheFlick at the end of this and vote. Okay.
Right.
I'm Sansa. You're Cersei. Do you have a vote, Brett?
Cersei.
Stupid is as
Sansa.
stupid does, and I don't think there's anything dumber than unleashing the Faith Militant on Westeros' capital.
Okay. All right. Score 1 for Matt.
Exactly.
Okay.
All right, so let's talk about Arya. Speaking of people who make terrible mistakes that we're all really disappointed in.
Yeah.
Like last we see Arya in last episode, like she's got her sword, she blows the light out, like she's gonna kick some ass, like Daredevil style. Like it's gonna be pitch black, she's gonna kill somebody, it's gonna be awesome. And then she's just standing there on a bridge and gets knifed.
Right.
Like, what the hell?
I think it was 100%. I'm like, she's gonna kill you but I think the math set up by this show is by the many-faced god is it just needs someone to die, right? And I think if, according to what's his name, Jack and Agar, if Arya kills the waif,
then the debt is
then the debt's paid, and he's like, all right, I'm gonna go back to ripping faces off dead people now. So I think that's all that's left, and I think the dark scene is going to happen.
I guess. But that was like, she knows that she's got to know that they're coming for her. She knows, right? I tweeted this morning that I thought I was disappointed in Arya, and somebody tweeted and said, was I the one who said that Arya's, and I wasn't, but somebody pointed out that Arya's story is basically a continuing series of advice that she doesn't listen to.
Yeah.
Such as
Well, like she, the Hound tries to teach her to be mean, and she's still nice, and
Right.
the faceless men teach her certain things, and she kind of doesn't listen, and it's a lot of times she just doesn't listen to stuff.
what they did very well in this episode is when we see the end of the episode and Arya and the Hound, their roles in relation to when we last saw them have completely flipped. When we last saw,
she's half dead.
She's half dead, and he's going
lost
off
and alone.
to anything.
And
that's what's happening
good
now.
point.
Last time he was half dead,
That's
and
right.
she was just
right.
like, I'm going
really
to go to
curious
Bravos.
as to where the Hound is going to go from here. And then I thought that the story with Yara and Theon was interesting. Like her pleading, like, let me see that old dickbag Theon again, right? Like,
Even
I
if
feel like
there's
she's-
only a bag
right,
left.
even if there's only a bag. Like, she's pleading with him, like, I want to see that asshole prick that we used to know. Like,
Even if there's only an
right,
asshole
right,
left.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess they're racing down to meet Khaleesi to be her ships.
They're way ahead.
Which, by the way, they kind of like stole Euron's idea in a massive way. They're like, oh, well, if you can't beat him, join him. Yeah, he became king with that great idea. Sorry, took your ships and beat you to it.
That's what, if you can't join him, beat him.
Right. Right. And so that's relevant. Other than that, the Ironborn are kind of annoying. And Theon, I find no joy in Theon, right? So if Theon came back,
No
remember,
Greyjoy?
No, I find no Greyjoy.
Yeah,
in Theon. That's right. And in this case, literally, right?
Literally.
They beat the Greyjoy out of him.
Right.
And so, but even if Theon were to come back, remember the real Theon was not that bright.
That's exactly right. She
right.
gives him this like pep talk. It's like drink or die. Maybe a little column A, maybe a little column B. But like Theon has only ever been like possession of the Starks and screwed that up. In charge of the Greyjoy name and screwed that up.
Yeah.
I mean, what is this like original condition of Theon that she's talking about?
Like,
Maybe when he was a kid, he beat up some kids on the playground.
Yeah, it's to have the real Theon at her side would help her only minimally, right?
Yeah.
So it's more symbolic than anything else.
Right. She knows it would help more than whatever this is.
Well, he's a decent swordsman, right? Like back when he used to fight, like he was a decent swordsman. I don't know if that's still the case anymore, but he was.
Okay.
He was good in a fight. That was probably about it.
Maybe he's worth half a guy from Bear Island.
Yeah, right. He's five.
Maybe a
at
tenth of a
most
guy
five
from
men, maybe 4.5.
So, on the other hand, I love the least surprising reveal of Game of Thrones that Yara is lesbian.
Yeah.
I was like, that doesn't really count as a twist.
Right. That's-
Okay. But I did like
Of
her
course
taste
she
in
is.
women.
Yeah.
And I agree with her that I too would have made that pit stop.
Oh yeah. Even though it's like way up at the head of like this really big inlet, and you could just cross as much as on the map you have to turn left. It's worth it. It's worth it to go to Florence on the Sea.
Yeah. And that's an apt description of that pit stop.
Yeah. It's just right up the. It's disgusting.
And Theon's like, why are we here? They're like, come on, dude.
I can't think of anything
The rest
worse.
of us have a good reason to be here.
That's like a version of hell. Is like a eunuch at a brothel.
That's right.
Just like, and you could see it just like Rain Manning in the corner. Like, I don't want to drink because that makes me want to do that even more. I don't know.
Yeah.
Real intense. But like Yara, I like her moxie. I like this plan. I would like to see Yara and Khaleesi like have a conversation of like two badass bitches.
right.
Just talking
And let's
about the future.
let's ask that little girl Lyanna in there too.
Yeah, have
like,
her in there.
like just to provoke everybody.
Yeah.
Arya's alive, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, of course she's alive.
For now.
Yeah.
She can't procreate, maybe.
Yeah. My last thing is.
Just saying.
Yeah, that's possible.
Step-
By the way, a lot of the Starks get that. You remember the pregnant wife of
Yeah.
Robb Stark? Now, that wasn't in the books, but it was in the series, right? And I thought that the Hound also had a gut wound. That's why I thought I noticed the same mirror image of the Hound and Arya and their role reversal. And so now she has the gut wound. Okay, so obviously she's going to survive that at least, and then we'll see what happens. And apparently there's a theory out in the internet about Arya, but I didn't want to read it because I don't like. We talked about the Clegane Bowl theory last review we did,
Right.
and already that made me know the Hound was coming back, and I was like, I wish I hadn't known.
It's just a theory, though.
I
This is
know.
Yeah,
actually, I
there's
will
another-
say. So here's the thing: the way it goes down in the book is that there's hints that this character might be the Hound, but it's never really explicitly said. So this was in this episode. That was a big reveal. Like, okay, yes, the Hound is alive. People have thought that and theorized it, but Martin has never explicitly said so. And so now
I
we
love
know.
that we're past the books, so that there's less
Right.
spoilers out in the world.
Yeah.
And that even the theories are just theories.
Yeah.
Right. No one really knows.
Right.
So anyway, I didn't read the Arya theory, but I hope to God that she becomes super relevant because they've spent so much time on her.
Right.
And I couldn't share your agreement, your feeling more, Matt, about how disappointed I was in her. I'm like, okay, you set up the whole Bane thing, like, oh, you think the darkness is your ally, right? And she blows out the candle and she's waiting in the dark. And the next episode, she's like walking through the market,
Right.
throwing money around left and right, bags of money.
yeah.
And then she sees the grandma coming. As soon as I saw the grandma, I'm like, it's the faceless bastard, it's the faceless. Dude, don't let the grandma get close to you. How much of a rookie are you after all that training that you
know.
let her go?
It's
Come
like
on.
the same thing happens in Silicon Valley and Veep to me is like these kind of artificial feeling impediments to success. Like there's always something that comes in that like you've spent a lot of time making your character smarter than this and better than this. And like then something terrible happens and it doesn't feel organic. It feels like you guys were like, are they low enough yet before they, come up again? And then they
Yeah,
and we
you're right.
need a parallelism between the Hound and Arya. So we'll let Arya get stabbed before she has vengeance and sews up this, the many-faced god just needs someone to die, name a name.
So
Like that was a
you're
frustrating
right,
thing for me.
because it goes deeper than my disappointment in Arya. It goes to my disappointment in the writers for not coming out. Because you're right, Arya should be much smarter and much better than that by now. After all
To
this
just
training.
like be throwing bags of coins at people.
Right,
Like
and-
just shut the fuck up.
Oh, it's a grandma. It won't hurt me. Oh my God! It turns out they have different faces.
She should be smart enough to set up the whole thing of the strategy for getting out of town should also be the strategy to kill the waif and satisfy the many-faced god. But that's not what she did.
Well, you said we've spent all this time with Arya to not think she's dead. Here's my theory. Like we've spent a lot of time with Arya, and yes, we've spent a lot of time with Jon Snow and Sansa. I think they're all going to die, and the total hero is going to be Rickon.
Really?
No.
No.
Hey, that sounds. You're stretching now, man.
Shaggy Dog. Just like lifts Shaggy Dog's head.
No one with a pet named Shaggy Dog gets to be the hero of Game of Thrones. So we'll see what happens
Right.
with Arya, but we're not done with her yet.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we've covered everything, right?
Yep.
Right. All right. So we got what? 3 more episodes to go.
The best 3 are yet to come. That's usually if you didn't notice the pattern after all this time. The setup is episodes 4, 5, 6, the ones we just watched, and actually in 1, 2, 3 they had a lot more action this year than they've had in previous years. Okay, then we went into the setups and they were good, and then there was the Hodor, and there was a lot of things that
Right.
were stuck with you in those episodes, and then but 8, 9, and 10 are the payoffs. So
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
now into the payoffs.
It's
What are
going to
we
be an
looking for?
insane cliffhanger at the end of the 10th episode that even the people who've read the books are going to be like, what? Like,
Right, and we know that episode 9 is like the climax, and episode 10 is episode 1 of next season. Essentially, that's what at least from my perspective, and a lot of people's that I've like looked around is there's like a giant fight in 9 or whatever it is,
Right.
that really is just like, oh my God, what are they gonna do next? And the final episode is
right.
like,
So next episode is called.
I
we
think
wanna
it's
talk about it?
The battle at Riverrun. Let's
Okay.
just leave it because let's just enjoy it without
Okay.
too many theories. Let's watch it. And I
Team
look,
Rickon.
Yeah, and I will say this.
Great
Again,
hashtag.
if the guy online was right, episode 10, the title of it has to do with the wall. So which means, kind of to your point, Brett, that finally the battle of fire and ice begins. Right. So the 8 and 9 will be about what's happening internally, right? And 10, finally, the wall. Okay,
All right.
so here they come.
Well, thanks for watching, and join us next week when we cover episode 8.
8.
Right?
That should be a doozy.